Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Stefan, and in this video I want to show you and talk to you about all the different technical books by our great master Czerny. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and make sure to check the notifications bell to never miss a new video. Also, I now offer online piano lessons if you're looking for one. There's going to be information in the description below. So where to begin? Czerny is one of those composers that we all know for his technical studies and educational works, as opposed to his symphonies and overtures and other different musical compositions. Although he was very talented at that too, it's mostly his teaching work that survived into today's repertoire. As I said many times in my previous videos, the pianist world kind of divides into two big groups. One of them says Czerny is not musical, it's a waste of time. And the other group, which I belong to as well, says that Czerny is very useful if done properly and if used in the right amount. So in this video, I want to show you all the main books that you can find on the market today, how to use them, which one to use, and how to make the most benefit of these exercises. There's two things you should know about Czerny. One, he was the student of Beethoven, and then later on he became the piano teacher of Franz Liszt. So he was right there with the best composers, which ultimately should show us that his work is very valuable. But the second thing you must know about him is that he wrote so many books. He has over 1,000 opus numbers and hundreds of books about piano tuition and exercises. So that means that this sheer volume of what he produced makes it very difficult to decide what you actually need, what you don't need, what's for your level, what's not for your level. But the good thing about having so many exercises is that you can cherry pick the best ones and work around those that really give you the most benefit. And hopefully this video is going to give you a little bit of help in that decision-making process. Let me start with the easiest ones. Most of the Czerny books are collections of technical exercises, apart from two books, which is Opus 599, the practical method for beginners on the piano forte, and Opus 823, which is the young pianist. So these two books are almost completely identical, and they are perfect for beginners from like grade 1 level, I would say, or maybe this one even before grade 1, all the way to grade 4, grade 5. These two books are kind of method books, but they're nothing like method books nowadays because they have barely any explanation in them, but they are progressive and they go from very easy little exercises to quite complex, difficult technical challenges. And these pieces are supposed to be musically nice as well. Now, most of them are, but not all of them. I think 599 is by far the most popular of all of his books, and I've learned from this as a child as well. Not from this one, but I have both of these now, and they are indeed very similar. They progress in the same manner, the difficulty is the same on each page. I would say this one is a little bit easier in the beginning, but then gets very hard much quicker than this one. Now, the main difference between this and a method book nowadays is that method books nowadays go very slowly with lots of explanation. So if I think about the Piano Adventures series or the Alfred, all the 6 levels combined would not have as much difficulty as this one book. So although it's only like 60 pages, it covers more than 500 pages of Piano Adventures in difficulty, not in material, but in difficulty. So that's how quick it progresses. And to show you an example, this is the kind of difficulty you get at the beginning of the book. And this is the kind of difficulty at the end of the book. Now, when would you want to use these books? These are not method books that you should use nowadays without any other supplementary books. So if you have any kind of method book and you want some more technical exercises besides, then you should definitely use these in the beginning stages of your piano journey, around pre-grade 1 or grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Anything above grade 3, there are much better alternatives than these books, but it doesn't really matter what level you are, because these books, the beauty of these books are that anyone can use them. You can use it even as an adult learner, even as an intermediate learner, as a beginner, even as an advanced player. If you feel like there is something in it that you want to brush up on, or you want to use it as a sight reading book, then it's very versatile for that reason. So once again, Czerny Opus 823 and 599 is great for beginners until a grade 3-4 level. It's progressive, lots of different technical pieces which sound quite nice but don't have a very rich musical value like Burgmüller pieces, for example. But for a beginner stage, they are quite easy to read. They encourage a lot of pattern recognition, and they train the fingers for lots of different difficulties. The next book we have here is Opus 299, and this one is called The School of Velocity. And this one again is one of the most famous ones, and it's definitely not a beginner book. It's more of an intermediate, early advanced book. And again, it really depends on the speed that you actually achieve in the pieces, how difficult it is. Playing them slowly is quite easy, but going faster and faster is quite a big challenge, and that's what kind of distinguishes the levels of intermediate and early advanced. Now, this book has lots of exercises. They are quite mechanical. Some of them have a nice kind of melodic tune to them, but most of them are repetition of the same pattern over and over again, creating some kind of harmonic change and melodies. The pieces are quite long, 2-3 pages, most of them, and they all go insanely fast according to the metronome mark. Now, the metronome marks are kind of debated even nowadays. We don't know if it's supposed to be quite as fast, but it doesn't even matter because we see on the title it's a school of velocity, so it's supposed to be something to do with speed and ease of playing. So anyway, 299 is a great book if you are intermediate and you've done already quite a fair amount of scales and technical exercises, not something that you want to try at first sight after doing a few beginner pieces. Now, if you look at this other book, which is Opus 849, this one is called 30 New Studies in Technique. And this book is actually supposed to come before 299, so it's kind of a prep book for 299. It prepares you for 299, but to be honest, the exercises are extremely similar to 299, but a little bit shorter, a little bit easier and less fast as 299. Now, I would say this one is great for intermediate, not for beginners, again, intermediate students, and by intermediate, I mean grade 5 and above, or possibly grade 4, depending on the ability of the student. But if I had to choose between these two books, I would always choose 849. It's just so much more manageable. The pieces are a little bit shorter and you still get the same benefit. If you play the same pattern for 16 bars or 100 bars, it's the same thing. If you can do it for 16 bars, you can do it for 100 bars as well. So if I had to choose one for myself or one for my students, I would definitely choose 849. It's just easier, nicer, and more enjoyable to play, and it kind of teaches you the same thing. So here is an example page from 299. And here is an example page from 849. So very similar patterns. 299 is a little bit harder. Whichever you go for is going to give you a great amount of technical challenges. But if you're an intermediate student, I would suggest 849 instead of 299. Next on the list is Opus 740, The Beast. Look how thick this book is. The Art of Finger Dexterity. And this is the hardest of all the Czerny books, and it's definitely an advanced book. So you would not do this before grade 7, or if you do it, you would do it much slower. Now, the whole point of these books is that you're supposed to do them after each other, and then the new one doesn't feel quite so difficult. But obviously, if you see the sheer volume of all these pieces, you would never be able to do all of them, especially as a hobby pianist. But more on this, I will talk a little bit more about how to practice them later in the video. So anyway, this one is the hardest one, and it's almost similar in difficulty to the Chopin etudes, not quite as difficult, but similar. It prepares you for the Chopin etudes, and these ones are the most musically complex ones and the ones that sound nicest, and you can actually perform these at recitals and concerts. The book has 170 something pages and 50 exercises, so it's a very long book and a lot of very repetitive exercises, just like 299, but it's a little bit harder, but works on the same kind of skills. Again, 740 also has a prep book, so Opus 636 is a less known one, but this is actually supposed to be the one before 740. So this is called the Preliminary School of Finger Dexterity, and this is supposed to prepare you for 740, and it's only 24 pieces and 46 pages, so a lot shorter but similar in difficulty. So if you want to put them in order, then it would be 599, 849, 299, 636 and 740. Here is a little snippet from 740, kind of difficulty you can expect. And again, the speeds are insanely fast in these books. Again, it's all about velocity, virtuosity, and dexterity. Once you get through, these are the main books. These are the ones that follow some kind of pattern, some kind of difficulty levels. But besides that, you'll find lots of other Czerny books. And the one I have here is Opus 139, which is 100 progressive studies without octaves. So this one goes from fairly simple to quite difficult in the end. I would say it's more of an intermediate book, not a beginner one, but it's great because if you have students who are younger and their hands are not big enough for octaves, but their dexterity is really great already, so they can play very difficult things, then this book is going to give them plenty of challenge without having to play octaves. I have students like that too who are really good at the age of 6, 7, but they simply can't reach the octaves and bigger chords. So many of the pieces that you would play at that level are unattainable for them because of the size of their hands. So that one is good for that. Another one is Opus 821, 168 measure exercises. And again, this is a collection of very short pieces. As the title says, all of them are 8 bars long. And it's great if you really want to focus on one specific issue, but you don't want to spend hours and days practicing very long pieces. Just 8 bars, very focused, very specific practice. This one is intermediate to advanced, and I would say it's from grade 4, grade 5, all the way up to grade 8. And you get quite difficult pieces in it, so that's the kind of layout you see inside. And the final book I have here is Opus 261, which is 125 exercises for passage playing. And again, this is all about virtuosity and playing difficult passages, but these pieces are actually quite short and they go from early intermediate to, I would say, late intermediate. So this one is very good for like grade 2, grade 3, all the way to grade 6. It doesn't get very difficult, but it's very good for passage playing, for those difficult passages in sonatas and other pieces. You can pick out some of these exercises and work through them. This is the difficulty you see in the beginning of the book. So some of them are only 4 or 5 bars long and very manageable for beginners as well. But towards the end of the book, you'll see a lot more dense textures and more difficult passages. So now that we got to the end of my books, there are so many more, but these are the ones that I have by Czerny. Let's see what we can get from this, what we should do and how we should approach all of these pieces. So first of all, as I said, nobody would ever play through all of these. It's just not practical, it's too much time, and the exercises are way too similar to each other. If you are a hobby pianist and you practice 1 hour or less a day, the best thing to do with Czerny is pick out a few exercises besides your method book or besides the pieces that you really enjoy doing. Maybe if you practice 3 pieces on a regular basis, then have one Czerny besides that, and you can alternate it with your scales and arpeggios, but there's no need to do more than that unless you are really a fan of his work and you want to get through the books. But you can get the benefits of it even if you just pick 1 or 2 exercises every month or every week. If you are a professional pianist or you strive to be one, then obviously you practice way more than that, 3, 4, maybe even 5 hours a day, and then it's practical to get through these books from beginning to end, but you are going to have a teacher who's going to guide you through this entire process and tell you which book to do and which not. So obviously this video is not aimed at professional pianists, but people who try to work from these books at home alone or with a teacher. So the first thing I want to stress, which I've already said at least 10 times in this video, is that the exercises in the books are very, very similar. You will find note repetition exercises in the 599, in the 740, in the 299, and the 846 or 849. So all of the difficulties are covered in all of the books, but the challenge is bigger. The pieces get faster, they get longer, and they get more complex, but they cover the same difficulties. So if you're an intermediate student, pick one of the books, either 299, 849, or the passage playing, and you'll find the same kind of exercises in each of these books. Now, I said that for intermediates, my personal favorite is 849. For beginners, my favorite is 599, and for advanced, obviously, it's 740. But it doesn't necessarily mean that these have to be your favorites. If you already have one of these books at home, then there's no need to buy another one. Try to work through that as much as you can, provided it's not too much harder than your level. And if you want to get these books, by the way, all of them are available in the public domain. So if you go to IMSLP or other websites, you can download them for free and use them on your iPad or print them out. There's no need to buy them. If you do buy them, the benefit is obviously that it's printed already and you get some nice preface that you can read at the beginning of the book, and the editions differ because some of them are going to be engraved much more spread out, which is easier to read. There's going to be some editorial notes which make it easier to work out what you have to do in each piece. So it's always nicer to have a nice book in front of you, which makes reading easier. But if money is an issue for you, or you don't want to buy so many books or be kinder to the environment, then all of these are freely available. So let's see how to practice Czerny. It's a very important question, and it's not a straightforward one to answer. So I have to admit, I've been using these books since I can remember, but I've never ever played through any of these books from beginning to end, nor have I ever asked any of my students to play through any of these books from beginning to end. I simply think that there's no need to play every single piece because many of them are so similar. You don't necessarily have a difficulty with each piece in the book, or you might have played something else already which is very similar, and there's no need to waste time on another piece which sounds exactly the same. I also use Burgmüller and some Chopin and other pieces for etudes, and some of them cover the same difficulties and same technical challenges, but are much nicer. So you can use them besides each other and just pick one or two from each of the books. If you are using Czerny as a supplementary book, then make sure to look through the book and see which pieces are the kind of technical areas where you lack dexterity, where you struggle, and try to work on those pieces first instead of the ones which you can already play quite well without any particular problems. And then even from those, select a few. So don't try to do a lot of pieces at once, maybe pick one or two at most, try to master them and then go on to the next one. So that would be my first advice for picking pieces from this book. Now, if you really love Czerny and you don't have a method book, but you want to get through 599 from beginning all the way to the end, then by all means play through all the pieces. It's not going to harm you. It might be a little bit boring at certain moments, but it will definitely give you a lot of challenges to work through. In my opinion, Czerny has great benefits for everybody, and I love some of the pieces, not just to play for technique, but also for their musical value. But I do not believe that these should be used as method books, or you should look at them as a Bible and play through from beginning to end. They are very old books, a lot of books, and certainly many things have changed since then in respect of how we play and learn piano. Regarding the speeds, the first two books, 599 and 823, don't have any metronome marks, so you can play them at a comfortable speed. Clarity and evenness always comes before speed. It doesn't even matter how fast you play. If you can't play it evenly, the whole thing is pointless. Learning technique means playing evenly and playing with clarity. If you can't do that, then do not try to work on speed, because it is just going to make it worse. When you get into the intermediate and advanced books, obviously there are metronome marks, and some of them are insanely fast, and even the best pianists in the world can't achieve those metronome marks. So again, striving for a very fast speed is great, but even if you play them slightly slower but with perfect clarity, is going to benefit you immensely. Now, when you get to the intermediate and advanced books, and some of the pieces are really long, like for example this one here, what you could do is, instead of playing the whole piece, maybe just play the first 3 lines until the repeat sign, because it already shows you how to play that pattern, and if you can do it in 3 lines, you can do it for the rest of the piece. So if you only have a little bit of time to practice, then you can shorten some of the pieces or just play them until the repeat sign, and it still teaches you that kind of technical challenge that you're supposed to learn from it, but in a much shorter time, and it's less music to memorize as well. Remember, when you have to play something really fast, you kind of have to memorize it, because we can't sight read at such a speed as the Czerny metronome marks. And again, if you have very little time to practice, it would be good to have a look at the book, which is only 8-bar exercises, or the other one, which is the 100 progressive exercises, because they're all quite short, less than a page, some of them less than half a page, and they all are very focused and specific. These books are also great for sight reading, provided you pick one that's underneath your level of playing. And if you use them for sight reading, it's kind of a 2-in-1, because you're not just sight reading, but you're also learning about technique and technical challenges. So this was my quite long review of these books. You could talk about them for hours and hours because there's so many of them and there's so many ways of using them and incorporating them into your piano practice. I gave you some basic advice and some examples of how you could use them. Obviously, if you have a teacher, have a discussion about it if you would like to do it, or if your teacher gave it to you and you don't want to do it, then obviously you need to work on reaching a compromise. I'm going to try to do some more Czerny tutorials. It's very difficult for me to pick which one for because there are hundreds and hundreds of pieces. If you have any more questions about these Czerny books, leave them in the comments below. I try to answer them. There's going to be links to all of these books that I've talked about and the difficulty level next to the titles in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, subscribe for more.